So I finally got around to seeing Shin Godzilla, and I quite liked it. For all intents and purposes, this film works as a reboot of the classic Godzilla story. I suppose the first thing I'll say is that it was great having Godzilla make a return to being the villain. Yes! Yes! It's so much more compelling, and the thought of having a giant monster laying waste to a city is terrifying. So when they turn Godzilla into a good guy, like they did with the 2014 American version, I find it a lot less interesting.
Oh no!
Sure, I enjoyed the good guy Godzilla when I was a kid, but now I'm grown up, it's not really for me. The story follows how the government and a large group of officials and scientists respond to the appearance of Godzilla, and as such, there's no notable characters. They don't even attempt anything close to a character arc, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. It was more surprising than anything. The entire film deals with the government's reaction to Godzilla, and I thought it was entertaining. I liked the enormous layers of bureaucracy as they try to deal with the problem. It was funny seeing the Prime Minister order a missile strike only for the man next to him to shout to the guy on the phone to fire the missiles. Then it cuts to the general receiving the orders, and he turns to the guy on the radio and tells him to fire the missiles. I'm sure it was intentionally satirical, and it was pretty fun. I imagine if you don't find that kind of silly government antics entertaining, you'll get bored with the abundance of it. The Godzilla creature himself is probably one of the weirdest takes I've seen. When I first saw a screenshot of him, I thought it looked terrible, like a giant wrinkly pear. But within the context of the film, it works. Throughout the movie, Godzilla changes and evolves, but he's always this scarred, misshapen creature. He looks ill, like really sick. It works quite well, and because he changes whenever he shows up, it keeps things interesting. The special effects were good. There's a few shots where you can say, that looks like CGI, but while it's occasionally noticeable, it wasn't distractingly bad, and considering the film had such a low budget, I'd say they did an amazing job. They only had $15 million to make this, and it still looks better than Black Panther. The score used some of the old classics from the original Godzilla, as well as a bunch of new music for a perfect blend. One of the new tracks in particular stood out to me. It invoked such a dark and ominous feeling, and it fit perfectly with the apocalyptic nature of a Godzilla attack. The biggest problem I had with this film would be the subtitles. I don't mind subtitles at all, and I'm normally pretty good with them, but they go by so fast and there's so many of them. You have subtitles pop up whenever there's some kind of text, like a written note, a signpost or a computer screen. Then you get subtitles appear when certain characters show up, informing us of their name and their government positions. Then you have 20 or 30 people in a room all talking and debating with each other. It gets pretty overwhelming at times. With that said, perhaps being unable to keep up helps you feel as rushed as the politicians do. There's also no key dialogue that if you miss, you won't understand what's going on. Despite a few goofy elements, I enjoyed the overall experience. It's not the best Godzilla film, but it is one of the better ones. The 1954 version is still my favourite, but this did have some really good scenes that conveyed the true dark and catastrophic nature of such an attack. And I love the score. I'd give this a 6 out of 10. If you like Godzilla, or found yourself disappointed by the 2014 American version, or you simply like giant monster movies, you should give this a watch. I enjoyed it, it wasn't great, but it was fun.